He thought she'd forget, but the alien girl returned, all grown up and ready to marry him. The engineer's promise. Lieutenant Harrison Wade winced as the fusion coupler sparked against his fingers. The cramped maintenance tunnel of Outpost Proxima was barely wide enough for his broad shoulders, and the sweltering heat made his uniform cling uncomfortably to his skin. "Hold steady," he muttered to himself, carefully realigning the power conduit. The diplomatic station orbiting Zephyria had seen better days, but as the lead engineer for the human contingent, it was his job to keep everything running smoothly. After 12 hours of non-stop repairs, his muscles ached beneath his navy blue uniform, now stained with coolant and lubricant. "That should do it," he said with satisfaction, stepping back to examine his handiwork. The repairs weren't elegant, but they would hold. The Zephyrians had welcomed humans with unusual warmth compared to other species in the Galactic Alliance. While most alien civilizations view humans with suspicion or outright hostility, the Zephyrians, with their iridescent blue skin and remarkable technological prowess, seemed genuinely fascinated by Earth culture. Harrison packed his tools methodically, his thoughts drifting to the upcoming departure. 6 months on this beautiful world had been enough to make him consider extending his tour, but orders were orders. Command wanted him back at Arcturus Base by the end of the month. "What are you doing?" The voice was so melodic and soft that Harrison nearly missed it over the hum of the station's environmental systems. He turned to find a small Zephyrian child standing at the edge of the maintenance bay, her large silver eyes fixed on him with unmistakable curiosity. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 by human standards, with shimmering blue-green hair that seemed to flow like water even in the artificial gravity. "Well, hello there," Harrison said, setting down his toolkit and kneeling to meet her at eye level. "You shouldn't be in this section, little one. It can be dangerous." "I wanted to see how humans fix things," she replied, her translator rendering her melodic language into perfect English. "Father says humans build differently than we do." Harrison smiled. "Your father is right. We tend to value function over form, though this old station has plenty of both." He gestured to the repaired systems behind him. The little girl took a tentative step forward, her silver eyes never leaving Harrison. "You're different from the other humans who visit. You make things work. The others just talk." He laughed, the sound echoing in the narrow maintenance tunnel. "Someone has to keep the lights on while the diplomats do their talking." She nodded solemnly, as if he'd imparted some profound wisdom. Then, with the directness only a child could muster, she declared, "When I grow up, I want my bondmate to be a human man who builds things. Just like you." The statement caught Harrison off guard, and he laughed despite himself. "Is that so?" "Yes," she said with absolute certainty. "Well," Harrison replied with a grin, "when you grow into a beautiful woman, I promise I'll marry you." The words tumbled out playfully, the kind of harmless joke an adult might make to humor a child's innocent declaration. Her face lit up with delight, and she nodded enthusiastically. "I'm Nilara. What's your name?" "Lieutenant Harrison Wade." "At your service," he replied with a mock salute. "Lieutenant Harrison Wade," she repeated carefully, as if committing it to memory. "I'll remember." A voice called from outside the maintenance bay, someone looking for the girl. Nilara glanced over her shoulder nervously. "I have to go," she said, "but I'll find you when I'm grown up. I promise." Before Harrison could respond, she darted away, disappearing through the bay doors as quickly as she'd appeared. He shook his head, smiling at the encounter. Kids were the same across the galaxy, full of imagination and impossible dreams. He had no idea how seriously his words would be taken. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. The alliance between Earth and Zephyria flourished, leading to unprecedented technological advancement for humanity and cultural enrichment for the Zephyrians. Harrison had risen through the ranks, eventually taking command of the permanent human outpost on Zephyria's largest moon. At 38, he was still in his prime, regular exercise, and advanced medical treatments ensuring his physique remained as impressive as it had been a decade earlier. The morning began like any other. Harrison arrived at the command center early, reviewing maintenance logs before the day shift arrived. The quiet solitude of the early hours was his favorite part of the day. Commander Wade. The voice was melodic and confident, with just a hint of the translator's synthetic undertone. Harrison turned, and his breath caught in his throat. Standing in the doorway was a stunning Zephyrian woman. Her blue-green hair cascaded down her back in intricate braids, contrasting beautifully with her iridescent blue skin. She wore a form-fitting silver dress that accentuated her slender figure. But it was her eyes, large, silver, and intensely focused on him, that triggered a distant memory. "Do I know you?" he asked, setting down his datapad. She stepped forward, moving with graceful purpose. "You promised to marry me when I grew up." A smile played at the corners of her mouth. "I'm grown now. You promised to marry me, and I've come so you can keep your word." Harrison froze, his mind racing to place her. Then it hit him. The little girl from the maintenance bay, a decade ago. A playful comment made to humor a child now returned as a binding oath. "Nilara," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Her smile widened. "You remember. Good." Harrison ran a hand through his dark hair, struggling to find the right words. "Look, Nilara, I was just making a promise," she finished for him. "On my world, promises are sacred bonds, Commander, especially those made to children." She moved closer, her silver eyes never leaving his. "I spent years preparing for this day, learning your customs, studying your language without translators, even adapting my physiology to be compatible with yours." "That's dedicated," Harrison said, backing up until he felt the console behind him. "But surely you understand I wasn't being serious." "Oh, I understand human humor better than most Zephyrians," Nilara replied, stopping just short of invading his personal space. "But I also understand human honor. And a man like you, a commander, a leader, surely values his word, doesn't he?" Harrison swallowed hard. This was beyond awkward. It was potentially a diplomatic incident in the making. Yet something about her confidence, her directness, stirred something unexpected within him. "Nilara, The command center doors slid open, and Lieutenant Commander Patel strode in, stopping short at the sight of them. "Commander, the Zephyrian High Council is requesting your presence. Something about a marriage proposal." Harrison closed his eyes briefly. "Of course they are." Nilara's smile turned triumphant. "Shall we go together, future husband? I believe we have much to discuss with the council." As she turned toward the door, Harrison caught Lieutenant Commander Patel's bewildered expression. He could only offer a helpless shrug in return. Somehow, a careless promise made to a child had just become the most complicated diplomatic situation of his career, and possibly the most life-altering. "After you," he said, gesturing toward the door. As Nilara walked ahead, Harrison couldn't help but notice the graceful sway of her movements. This was going to be a very long day, and perhaps an even longer future than he'd ever imagined. Unexpected return. The Zephyrian High Council chamber was an architectural marvel, a vast dome of polished azure crystal that caught the light of Zephyria's twin suns, casting prismatic patterns across the floor. 7 council members sat in a semicircle on elevated seats, their expressions unreadable as Harrison entered with Nilara at his side. Commander Wade, intoned High Counselor Vexer, a distinguished Zephyrian with silver streaks in his blue-green hair, "We understand there is a matter of some delicacy to discuss." Harrison cleared his throat. "High Counselor, there seems to be a misunderstanding. When Nilara was a child, I made what humans would consider a joke. A promise," Nilara interrupted smoothly, "one witnessed by me and acknowledged by the commander himself moments ago when he recognized me." The council members exchanged glances. Counselor Thalia, the only female among them, leaned forward. "Commander Wade, Perhaps you are unaware that in our culture, promises made to children are considered especially binding. They are viewed as pure intentions, untainted by adult machinations. With all due respect, Counselor, Harrison replied, choosing his words carefully. On Earth, adults often make playful promises to children without the expectation they'll be taken literally. It's a form of endearment. Fascinating, murmured Counselor Vexer. Yet surely honor transcends cultural boundaries. A man of your position must understand the weight of his words. Harrison felt trapped. Rejecting Nylara's claim outright would insult Zephyrian customs and potentially damage the alliance his people had worked so hard to build. Yet accepting it would mean committing to a relationship, possibly even marriage, with a woman he barely remembered. He glanced at Nylara, who watched him with those intense silver eyes. There was something captivating about her, a confidence and intelligence that went beyond her striking appearance. Perhaps Counselor Drax, a younger member with progressive views, suggested a compromise is possible. Commander Wade could honor the spirit of his promise through a formal courtship period. This would allow both parties to determine if they are truly compatible. Nylara's expression brightened. I find this acceptable, Commander. Harrison saw his opening. A courtship would buy him time to find a diplomatic solution without causing immediate offense. I would be honored to court Lady Nylara in accordance with Zephyrian tradition. Excellent, Vexer said, visibly relieved. The traditional period is 3 lunar cycles. During this time, you will participate in several ceremonial events and spend time learning about one another. And at the conclusion, Thelia added with a pointed look at Harrison, either party may withdraw without dishonor, provided there is legitimate incompatibility. Harrison nodded, understanding the implicit message. He couldn't simply go through the motions. He would need to demonstrate genuine effort. As they left the council chamber, Nylara slipped her arm through his. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through him. You handled that well, she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement, for someone planning to find a way out of his promise. Harrison raised an eyebrow. That transparent, am I? To me, yes. Her fingers tightened slightly on his arm. But I'm not concerned. 3 cycles is ample time for you to discover what I already know. And what's that? He asked, acutely aware of her closeness. She stopped, turning to face him fully. Standing close, he noticed flecks of gold in her silver irises, like stars in a twilight sky. That we are remarkably compatible. Her voice lowered to an intimate tone that sent a shiver down his spine. Biologically, psychologically, in all the ways that matter. Harrison found himself momentarily speechless, caught off guard by her directness and the sudden, undeniable attraction he felt. Nylara was unlike any woman he'd ever met, human or otherwise. You seem very confident for someone who barely knows me, he finally managed. Oh, but I do know you, Harrison Wade. The use of his first name felt strangely intimate. I studied you for years. Your service record, your published papers on cross-species engineering principles, even your interviews with the Alliance Press. That's thorough. Harrison looked into Nylara's expectant eyes and found himself speaking from a place of unexpected honesty. I intend to honor the spirit of my promise by approaching this courtship with openness and respect. I will learn your ways, share my own, and discover if what lies between us is worthy of the bond you seek. The liquid in the bowl flared brilliantly, casting his face in golden light. A murmur of approval swept through the crowd. Nylara stepped forward, her fingers joining his in the bowl. The liquid responded immediately, swirling around their joined hands in patterns of increasing complexity. I intend to show Harrison Wade that our meeting was no accident of fate, but a convergence of destinies, she said, her eyes never leaving his. I will prove that what began with a child's admiration has matured into a woman's desire for a partner who embodies the strength, innovation, and honor that I have always seen in him. The liquid between their fingers pulsed with light so intense that Harrison had to squint. The crowd gasped collectively. The waters have spoken, Vexer declared. "The intentions are pure and resonant. Let the courtship proceed." As Harrison looked into Nilara's radiant face, he realized that what had begun as diplomatic maneuvering had evolved into something far more complex and far more enticing than he could have ever imagined.